Welcome to Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I'll dive into our digital to dollars process. Know your distribution.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who is happy to work with some awesome clients, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan. I am very happy to work with some awesome clients. You can check them all out at sportsgeekhq.com/clients. They're all the people that I've worked with. Thank you for listening. You might have found this podcast in your podcast app, in Spotify, in my favorite podcast app, Pocket Casts. It's also available now on Google Podcasts. And most of the time now you can pretty much ask anything. Find me the podcast, and either Siri or Google Assistant will find it. Also, if you go to sportsgeekhq.com, that is where you will find this podcast. Or you can find out more about what this podcast is about at digitaltodollars.com. As always, you can reach out to me via email or via social media. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com will reach my inbox. And on the socials, at Sean Callanan or at SportsGeek will find me on most platforms, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those, you can find me. This is the third part in our special mini-series diving in a little bit deeper and explaining our digital to dollars process, how we go about making it work and how we use it with clients in a variety of different ways. So I hope you enjoy this one. If you haven't listened to the previous ones, it's okay. This one works as a standalone, but if you want to go back to episode 1 and 2, you can. You can go back to Know Your Audience. That's episode 264, sportsgeekhq.com/264. Or you can go back to episode 267, Know Your Content. But we'll definitely put all of these up eventually up onto digitaldollars.com where you can find out more information about it. Before we get stuck into this episode, I just want to talk a little bit about our Patreon campaign. You can be a supporter of our Patreon by going to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Why would you want to do that? Well, that helps support us in our sports business content efforts, whether it's podcasts like this one, podcast interviews that are done on a regular basis on this feed, but also our Q&A episodes that are coming out every Friday, and also our Sports Geek newsletter that comes out on a weekly basis. It helps pay for the costs of producing the podcast, the bandwidth that happens when you get lots and lots of downloads, which is good to have, but someone's got to foot the bill. So you can support it as a personal supporter for as little as $4 a month. So a cup of coffee and you get 5 to 8 podcasts, depending on how the travel schedule is, as well as 4 weekly emails. So that's a pretty good deal for $4. And if you're a business that wants to connect with the sports, digital, technology, and marketing audience, whether they be here in my country in Australia or in the US, where we see a lot of the trends in the sports marketing, digital, and technology space, or in Europe. Luckily, I have audience and listeners from all parts of the world. So if you want to reach that audience that are sports business executives looking to connect with their fans and get results, you can do so. You can become a silver or gold supporter in our Patreon campaign. So please check it out, sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Let's get into it. Episode 3, our third pillar of the digital to dollars process, know your distribution. So what is it? What is this pillar? What is this pillar about? Where did it come from? This pillar is all about how you get your content, distribution, how you get your content out there. So the previous 2 pillars were knowing your audience, who you're producing your content for, who is engaging with your content, who are the target audiences that you want to engage with, who do your sponsors want to engage with. So that's the know your audience piece. And then know your content is looking at the different content strands or franchises that you want to develop to reach those different audiences. So what are you trying to develop? Is it written form? Is it audio form? Is it video form? Those kind of things. And really diving in on how to go about building out great content that has a result, whether that result be deepen engagement, become a ticket buyer, become a season ticket buyer, that kind of thing, or potentially engage a customer of a partner. So if we've done those two steps and done those two pillars, which is very audience focused and content focused, this one's all about the pipes. This is all about what pipes do we put it in, what platforms, so the pipes being social media platforms, which is a primary distribution opportunity for sports teams and leagues, but then also not discounting and almost refocusing on email and the importance of email and what your EDM strategy might be. How often are you going to send out emails? What's going to be included in your emails? What objectives are you trying to get out of what you're sending out? So that's where the no distribution pillar comes from. In that space of what should we be doing on these different social media platforms, and how should we be tackling what's our data strategy look like, and how should we be tackling email, as it's still a very, very effective way to move product, to move tickets, to engage. So who attends these types of sessions and workshops that we run around no distribution? Well, definitely the digital and the content editorial team. They need to know how to use these different platforms for their storytelling devices, or as storytelling devices, I should say. How do they best use video, and what channels are best, and things like that. So conversations around that. Sponsorship is really important, that the commercial folk are in this kind of meeting, because then they start understanding the nuances of the different platforms and also the timing of different platforms. So it's really important to have them involved in this conversation, because then they start realizing why, a mention on a game day Instagram story is more valuable than a mention on a game day on a Instagram story on a Tuesday afternoon, because of the fervor by which your fans are getting around your Insta stories on a game day, and it is a peak time. It is where the eyeballs are. So it's important to have your sponsorship commercial folk at this meeting. And then also, it does not hurt, and it always helps to have your data team and the people who benefit the most from data, whether it be ticketing, membership, season ticket sales, merchandise. So the people that go, well, hang on, how can I use these platforms to help me sell or help me to convert data? So some of the things that we look into in depth in this workshop is where to publish and why. So for coming out of the Know Your Content pillar, we've identified a content piece, a content strand, as I've mentioned before. And we need to decide where it's going to get posted. And so this is really looking at why are we posting it, what are the actions we're trying to get out of it, and sort of stepping away from, okay, we've produced a piece of content and here's an Instagram version of it, here's a Twitter version of it, here's a Facebook version of it, here's a TikTok version of it, and that blast sort of approach. And starting to look at, well, does it work on this platform? Does it need to be posted on this platform? How do we make our platforms have a different personality and a different tone, and a different appeal? Again, if you're an avid fan, if you're one of the digital cheer squad, you want to make sure that they are getting something different, a different dopamine hit on the different channels. If we're just seeing the same post on every channel, the fans less likely to like and comment and engage with every single post on the different channels. So it starts that conversation. What we do to go through is the content publishing matrix, and it literally is a Q&A of each piece of content that you create. So you create a piece of content, let's just say it is a plays of the week. That gets done. It's a video piece of content that we produce. So it gets produced 20 times because we play 20 rounds in our sport. And then we decide, does it get posted on Facebook? Yes, it does. So we put down a 1 in the column. Does it get tweeted? Yes, it does. Does it get tweeted once or twice? Can we post it twice? Do we split it up over 3 or 4 different videos? Does that make sense? And again, because the platforms are different, we can do that. And so doing that exercise of going through every platform you have, all the way from your YouTube to TikTok to Instagram feed to Instagram story to Instagram TV, those kind of things, to start deciding, one, how many platforms it get posted on, but then also to start aggregating to look what does a regular week look like on those platforms. So when we're starting to fill out that content publishing matrix, it starts showing that, wow, we maybe are posting a lot on Facebook and maybe we could pull it back. Or do we need to put everything on Instagram? Or the converse of that is, can we post this multiple times on Twitter because it has a really short life? So we start playing around with things like what's the frequency, what's the scarcity? And I think that's important, especially with the commercial folk. Like, hey, we're only going to have a certain amount of posts on this day. So it'll be more valued by fans and more likely to be seen. And if we add more posts and posts from sponsors and it'll start affecting things. So we look at frequency and scarcity. Normally, like I just said, pulling back what's getting posted on Facebook, not taking, what our friends at Facebook would say, post more things more often, which is great, fills their pipeline, but it doesn't necessarily have the appropriate effect for you and for your team. Most of the time when we've assessed whether it be a team or a league, we've normally cut some posts from Facebook because we find that they're not getting the results, and less is actually more. So it's sort of working out, what does volume, what does value look like in each of the platforms, and then also assessing each platform a little bit differently because not all of them drive traffic. We still can't put links on things in Facebook. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have a verified Insta account, you can get some really good traffic from swipe up on the Insta stories, but not everyone has that option. But it's a matter of going about how you're going to post on the different platforms and how you're going to make all your platforms differently. So normally part of this process is diving in on some of the latest trends from a social media platform point of view. Where is the algorithm going? With Facebook, what kind of videos are working well? What are working well in different parts of Facebook and different ecosystems? What are Lad Bible doing well? What is Jimmy Fallon doing well? Those kind of things. What are they doing well in that space that is getting engagement, getting people to watch, those kind of things? And then the same for other platforms. So what are the changes in Instagram? At the moment, I think of the past 18 months when I've asked teams, what's the most popular platform? Instagram has been the number one answer for the last 18 months, I think, from nearly every guest. I don't think other than ones that are really pushing the advertising options in Facebook, most have said Instagram, and it's where most of the growth is. So there's a little bit of how do you manage and tap into that growth. There's definitely a bell curve around a lot of the social media platforms when they're going through that growth phase. So how do you tap into that piece, because it's not going to last forever. And then looking at Twitter, how that's pivoting a little bit into more media, and it's driving less traffic, and it's becoming a more engaging and a more engagement platform. So how do you tap into that space, whether it be using GIFs and polls and those kind of things. And also, is there specific content that's just for Twitter, and does it produce the results that you want? To also looking at other platforms in the messaging space. At the moment, I guess Snapchat has sort of dropped off the radar for most teams, and they haven't really been putting in that much effort into Snapchat because Instagram Story has sort of taken that feature and everyone's doing it on Instagram Story because that's where the audience is. But the new player in town is TikTok, and how much that's garnering attention and eyeballs of that younger audience. But again, what content needs to be created? It's very bespoke. It's very TikTok only. So if we're going back to the know your content piece, you're producing the content, but it only gets distributed on TikTok. But then the other piece is, well, if we're doing some cool stuff on TikTok, can we share it on other platforms? They're the kind of things I think you'll want to look at to both maximize what you're doing in that space, and also helping you grow what you're doing in TikTok. But TikTok's an interesting one because there's a lot of, it's very creative, creator driven, and so it's a hard place for teams to play in for mine, because it's really, you've got to have a good talent in driving that in the creation side. And then the other part of it is a real key and often undervalued and underutilized distribution platform, which is email. And to a second degree, your app. If you've got push notifications, those kind of things in your app, being able to push something out and getting the attention of your fan in the phone is a big opportunity, but it can be abused pretty quickly and ignored even quicker. But email is one that is, as I said, largely underutilized. I've got a couple of podcasts planned in the future with some email marketing experts that I sort of want to dive into best practice in the email space. It's still one of the best drivers for ticket sales in the world of sports. And really, when we're looking at email as a distribution platform, it's not, hey, we're going to send an email for every single piece of content. It's really how are we going to grade our content to make sure the best content gets into that email that is the reason the email gets opened. So to take our esports team Gravitas as an example, from our distribution point of view and some changes we made from 2019 to 2020, Twitter was a really active and remains relatively active platform for esports, and especially around the OPL, the Oceanic Pro League. But what we've found is there's a lot of noise in the Twitter space, but not necessarily a lot of traction. And what we wanted to do is actually drive people into our website and have a deeper, more meaningful relationship. So we've done specifically on Instagram and done a lot of content on Instagram and Instagram stories to, really talk to our digital cheer squad. So if you're following us on Instagram, you're getting different story and different content than you are on other platforms. So that makes it unique and makes it worthwhile. But the one that is actually probably the most successful has been email, in that we send out a regular email, and each week we normally share a little snippet that we haven't shared anywhere else, whether it's a player signing or a roster change or a study of some sorts. And one of the metrics that I'm tracking is, does it generate Twitter conversation? Do people start talking about it online? So the last two EDMs that went out, we had people taking screenshots of the EDMs and then sharing them on Twitter, and it's sparking a conversation. So it's not necessarily have to be a click through and a purchase. That would be great, and hopefully that happens when we push out our membership campaign. But it is, specifically tactical for us to use email, and it goes counter to what everyone is saying about the esports and gamer space, that young people don't have emails and they don't open emails. Well, our open rates and the fact that people are talking about it on Twitter says that they do. So some of the things that we do as part of this is, like I said, the content publishing matrix and effectively reassess what content's getting published where. And then that EDM review, like looking at both the technology behind it to make sure we're getting key delivery, making sure we've got all the appropriate records and security on our email provider to make sure that the emails actually get delivered, but then also analysing what is getting opened and what is getting clicked to sort of track down how we head in the right direction. And I do the same thing, when I'm looking at Sports Geek News, which you can get on a weekly basis, jumping in once a month, checking what articles are getting clicked on. Are they the technology articles? Are they the marketing articles? Are they the digital articles? Are they the productivity hack articles? Are they esports articles? To know what I've got to curate going forward. So if you're just adding a whole bunch of things to your EDM and ticking the box saying it's done, then you're missing out on an opportunity. So the outcomes, it definitely sees a reduction in the blast everywhere approach, and it even might see the outcome that you just stop using a platform altogether. If it's not producing results, then don't do it. And then also understanding the value of what a hot platform is. And so again, Instagram stories, which I'd almost, is separate from Instagram feed. I mean, it's a hot platform right now, and continues to be so. So how can you leverage that, give the fans what they want, but then also how can you figure out how the commercial and sponsorship team get some advantage out of that? So some of the questions that get answered in these workshops are: what is the best platform for this content? How should this content be framed for this platform? So there is a bit of discussion around vertical video. What does it look like if your camera crew are shooting for Instagram stories in particular? How should they shoot it? How should they frame it? What does it look like when it is cut in a vertical fashion? But then also, what effort is being put into this platform? And I think there has been a bit of a course correction in the Twitter space over the last couple of years. If we remember sort of 2010 to 2014, there was a lot of people doing a lot of stuff in Twitter and to a point where you were replying to every fan and those kind of things, which you still can do. And, to a certain degree, I'm doing a lot of that with Gravitas because we're still in that startup phase and recruiting fans. But the volume and the noise that's in Twitter does make that job tougher and tougher. And so it is sort of what is the outcome? How much effort should someone be doing monitoring and replying to every mention and those kind of things? And then also, how much benefit is in the, the Twitter smack talk, which sometimes happens backwards and forwards, which can get some good buzz and get certain amount of fans rolled up. But I'm not entirely convinced it does provide you mainstream cut through, to be honest. So it is something that, and I think it is very dependent on the skill set of the person behind the thumbs. It takes a lot of skill to be able to have that zinger reply to another team and that kind of thing, as a means to going about getting engagement from your fans. Whereas things like planning those bigger events around, I guess, set items, and Valentine's Day is a good one. I really did enjoy the Sacramento Kings thread of sliding into everyone's DMs and sort of giving them Valentine's as a lot playful and fun type of thing that can be planned and it won't be derailed by, a losing streak or something like that. So there's some of the things that we look at from a know your distribution point of view. So how does it work? How do we go about it? So it's a couple of ways. It's either a workshop as part of the Digital Dollars process, step 3. So we work with your team to review what they're about to go and publish and where it should be published. And so follow up and support, the content plans of the season coming ahead. It can be done as an online session with Q&A available, sort of diving into a review of all the social media platforms and trends and the like, and then, again, advice and analysis on how you go about tackling particular platforms. So really looking at how do we grow and engage on Facebook? How do we grow and engage on Instagram? What should we be doing in Twitter? How might we tackle something like TikTok? And then the other one is effectively Know Your Distribution Keynote, which is really around sports social media trends and helping them understand what platforms are working for teams at the same level as them, but then also how you can go about leveraging your social media platforms and getting some results. And again, starting to put that focus on what steps 4 and 5 are, which is knowing your value and knowing your pitch, but starting to have that commercial focus of, well, if we did this on this platform, there will be value for our partners. So that does give you a little bit of, I guess, understanding of the Digital Dollars process for Know Your Distribution. If you want to know more, you can go to digitaldollars.com. You can check out this episode and the previous episodes at sportsgeekhq.com. Look for the Digital Dollars episodes. And if you haven't already, please sign up for our newsletters. You can get Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/SGN. And you can also get SG Esports News, which is our fortnightly take on all things esports. So if you want to get up to speed with that, please check it out, sgesports.com. And if you want to follow, I guess, our social media strategy and our platform strategy around Gravitas, follow the Gravitas socials, at Gravitas on Twitter, at Gravitas OCE on Instagram, or Gravitas LOL on Facebook, and you can see the different content that we're doing at Gravitas, and I think it does show sort of a few differences where we're doing. We're playing around with Facebook events. We're doing specific stuff around Instagram stories. We're doing some video stuff that's a little bit different on Twitter. So please, check that out. And if you want to become a Gravitas supporter, go to gravitas.gg. That's the website. And if you do want to become a Patreon subscriber, you can go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon to sign up and support all of that content efforts that I just described, podcasts and newsletters. Until next episode, if you've got a question about the Digital to Dollars process, please reach out to me. You can go to digitaldollars.com, or you can book in for a phone call. I'd love to have a chat about how I can adapt either part of or the entire Digital Dollars process for you or your organization. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. Phone call that's available for Sports Geek podcast listeners. I'd love to chat to you about how I can help you. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.